PlayStation 5 has 10.3 teraflops of GPU computational power. Does not have VRS support. It does not have VRR support, and is lacking full hardware ray tracing. Let's get into it. As always, guys, go ahead and subscribe to the video, give the video a like, share it with a friend, and we're going to discuss this and a few other things. So lately I've come across a few articles and a few channels that are saying that the PlayStation 5 does not have VRS support, it does not support full ray tracing, and it does not have variable refresh rate. So I just want to talk about these things and get them out of the way and shed some light on them for those of you who are wondering what is the case with the PlayStation 5 going into the next generation. So let's start off with the ray tracing. So I'm going to use the Xbox Series X as an example. It's at 12.1 teraflop of GPU computational power, but it also has some dedicated ray tracing cores, which can output, say, around 13 teraflop of GPU computational power. Now, both consoles are based on RDNA 2, and both companies have confirmed that they're using a hardware solution for ray tracing. So if Microsoft is using hardware ray tracing based on RDNA 2 and their dedicated cores on the chip just for ray tracing, don't you think there would be something similar with the PlayStation 5 chipset? So what I can confirm, or what I'm thinking, is that the PlayStation 5 has 10.3 teraflops of GPU computational power. That's just raw GPU compute, and then it's going to have some additional cores for ray tracing, just like on the Xbox Series X. It may be less than the 13 teraflop that the Xbox Series X is capable of. Maybe it'd be around 10, 11, maybe 12 the most. But the point is that we have RDNA 2 built in the PS5, and we're going to have dedicated cores on that chip for ray tracing. Sony has already confirmed that they're able to do ray tracing on some next-gen games without any major compromise to the hardware of the PlayStation 5. Now, full ray tracing is what they're aiming for, so I expect to see that on the PlayStation 5. So PS5 does have ray tracing, and it will support full ray tracing, which is hardware based and based upon RDNA 2 architecture. Next, we're going to talk about variable refresh rate. Now, a lot of persons are saying that variable refresh rate is only going to be on the Xbox Series X, which I really don't believe. I doubt that it's going to be only on the Xbox Series X, and here's why. Both the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X will be using HDMI 2.1, and HDMI 2.1 is a feature. HDMI 2.1, I should say, has VRR support built in. It's a feature of HDMI 2.1, and it will be on both console. So for the fact that the PS5 will be using HDMI 2.1, we can confirm that it will have variable refresh rate. Sony has not talked about this as yet, but it's pretty much confirmed. If you read between the lines, we know that it will have HDMI 2.1. So therefore, it will have variable refresh rate, and it will also have auto low latency mode and a few other HDMI 2.1 features. Next, we're going to talk about variable ray shading. Also, this is a feature that is based up on RDNA 2. I see that Microsoft is building up on it with DirectX 12 Ultimate. So yeah, they will have VRS, but I think Sony will have something that is similar. I don't think they will call it VRS. I think it's going to be called something different. And Mark Cerny did give a hint towards this in the press conference briefing that he did last month. He mentioned the geometry engine, which is based up on VRS. So yeah, with him talking about the geometry engine, he's basically talking about VRS, but I think that they built up on variable rate shading and come up with something that may be a bit better. Next thing that a few viewers or a few persons from the PlayStation community are worried about is 120 hertz or 60 hertz gaming at 4K. Now, in the past, it has been confirmed that the PS5 will be able to do up to 120 frames per second. The guys over at Polyphony Digital went ahead and confirmed this by saying that the next Gran Turismo will be able to run up to 120 frames per second. Whether this will be at 4K or 1440p or I don't know 1080p, which I think we're done with 1080p gaming by now. So I think minimum resolution will be 1440p at 120 hertz. But there might be a case that we could do 120 hertz 4K with ray tracing off and 60 hertz 4K with ray tracing on. So no doubt that the PS5 will be able to do 120 hertz gaming in the next generation. Finally, we're going to talk about the SSD and the speeds. So we know that the PS5 SSD has a raw throughput of 5.5 gigabytes per second and 8 to 9 gigabytes compressed. Now, there's been a lot of talk lately about Kraken and BC Pack and the velocity architecture that is being used by Microsoft, and a lot of Xbox fans is saying that the velocity architecture is making up for the difference in throughput on the PS5 SSD and the Xbox SSD, which I think is stupid. The Xbox SSD tops out at 4.8 gigabytes per second compressed and 2.4 gigabytes raw. So I don't know how the velocity architecture is going to make up for more than double the difference that is between the PS5 and Xbox Series X SSD. It's limited still to 4.8 gigabytes per second compressed throughput, and it can't go beyond that. So no matter how efficient the velocity architecture might be, it's still going to be a lot slower than what's on the PS5. So the PS5 does have the advantage in SSD technology, and this is something that I need everyone to understand. Don't pay attention to anything about what the velocity architecture can do. It's still not going to be any better than the Kraken solution that's on the PS5. And Sony made sure that they put enough work into this SSD to make sure that it is pretty fast and will get the job done. So yeah, the PS5 has a pretty great SSD, which will help with frame rate and overall system stability and how games are developed in the next generation. Some first-party titles are going to take full advantage of this SSD, and we're going to see games develop in a very unique and different way going forward into the next generation. So that is something that you can look forward to. Well, that just about does it for the video, guys. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel and give the video a like if you like it, and share it with a friend. Until then, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.